welcome to episode 94 of Retro Encounter, RPG Fans Off-Topic Podcast. I'm your host for today, Peter Triezenberg. I have Fury on the boards. Joining me today is the podcast pimp.
Oh, okay, you're referring to me. All right. Hi, I'm Mike Sollosi. I'm Monsoon on the boards, and it's true, I am a bit of a RPG fan podcast evangelist, or what he said. Sure.
He's coming up behind our new staff members at the hotel rooms at E3 and being like,
You're making
the good word of Retro Encounter.
Okay, you're making that sound much creepier than what actually happened, I should say, for the listeners.
That's true.
We've already had our travel plans to Japan banned because we've promoted child murder and things.
That's
and you
true.
want to now sell Mike as a pimp.
The Nipponichi people were very nice to us despite that.
Yes, they like maybe they hadn't heard the podcast yet, but a lot of the Japanese staff at E3 were very nice to us, and I haven't got anything in the mail about a travel ban yet, but I mean, whatever, maybe the podcast just hasn't been big enough yet.
And those sultry tones you were hearing earlier belong to Alana Hagues.
Hello. I like how I'm sultry all the time. Oh, I'm diving Falcons on the board. I do like sultry. I'm liking this little tag that Peter has graciously attached to me.
It's a much better adjective than podcast pimp.
I mean, I was thinking of saying I'm podcast slut, but you know, I do just like to. I just leave them alone for about 3 months, and then I'm like, oh, I'll be on 6. It's fine.
It comes in waves.
It does.
And for me, it just never stops.
Yes.
What an adult pocket. Oh.
Yes, Mike's podcast prowess puts us all to shame. But anyway, the subject for today's episode is Pokemon. We're coming back to that age-old Nintendo franchise. Here you could call this episode Pokemon Green Shield version, I suppose. You're really willing to go that far?
I think I like that, actually. Yeah, sure. Green Shield version.
We'll go with that. We can. I'm sure that some rival site of ours will be able to come up with their version that's a million times better and has a different cover legendary. But
And we did have some Pokemon episodes a while ago. I guess when were those? Was that
Last January, I think.
Yeah,
yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, right. It was right at the end of the year, end of 2016, beginning of 2017. And
oh no, I mean like beginning of 2016.
Oh right. Oh man, I'm just losing track of the years now. That's a problem. But yeah, so I guess over a year ago we had some Pokemon episodes, and we were each playing different versions, and it was a sometimes confusing discussion because we were very much in the past and present of it. But now we're very much going to live in the past for this episode, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Yes, so what we're going to do, dear listeners, is we're going to go through each generation of Pokemon, just talk about its history, what Pokemon get introduced, what we like about it, what we dislike about them. We're then going to choose our favorite and least favorite out of each of these gens, and then at the end we will be holding a vote because we know you guys like hearing us vote and argue about things on this show.
True. Mm-hmm.
So, without further ado then, starting us off, we have the very first generation of Pokemon, going all the way back to the Kanto region. This one's probably, I hesitate to say that if there is a de facto fan favorite, but the first generation of Pokemon definitely has a certain appeal to it, being the one that started it all.
Yeah, and it's the one I have the most nostalgia for, and probably the one that I've played the most. And it, I mean, when it landed in the 90s, it was, I played it right when it came out. I was part of that initial wave of hype. I was, I think probably 12 or 13 years old. I remember playing Pokemon in middle school homeroom with several of my friends. And yeah, I think it holds up as one of the best Game Boy games, probably the best RPG on the Game Boy, and a lot of the initial Pokemon ideas and the designs of the original 151 are really timeless.
Yeah, the original Pokemon designs are iconic, I'd say. When you think Pokemon, I think for most people, you get Squirtle, Bulbasaur, Charmander, the original 3 starters. You get Charizard and Blastoise. You think Pikachu, who's went on to become the series' mascot.
Yeah, literally the first 6 Pokemon I would think of are the 3 starters: Pikachu, Mewtwo, and Snorlax. Those are like the Pokemon patient zeros for me.
Good choices. Good choices.
Yep.
So, did you guys also start with the original Red and Blue? Because I know I'm significantly older than both of you. So.
Way to rub it in.
I'm rubbing it into myself, if anybody.
I mean, I started off with Yellow, so I missed Red and Blue initially. I think we had them, and my brother played one of them instead, or both of them. But I went with Yellow to start off with because, it's shiny. At the time, I loved Pikachu. He was really cute. I watched the TV show before I got into the games, and Pokemon Yellow is the first RPG I played, as I've probably previously mentioned, and I recently rebought it for the 3DS because they did the Virtual Console re-release, so as a nice little shot of nostalgia, I bought Yellow because why not?
You can even trade between 3DS versions of that.
Yeah, you could. I used to get really annoyed because I didn't really have any other friends that were into Pokemon, and we didn't have enough money for a link cable, so we could buy all the games, but we would never get the link cable because I just didn't know anybody. I loved Pokemon. It kind of took over my life a little bit. I don't remember Red and Blue and Yellow as fondly as everybody else, but I had a lot of fun with it. I suppose, like you've said, some of the most iconic Pokemon designs, because they're so simple. So something we'll probably come back to later on is that a lot of the Pokemon nowadays are based off of strange things, and these are all just basic animals, and that's both a criticism and a good
okay.
Of it to me.
Does have Porygon.
It has Porygon and Magnemite and Executor, so it's not exactly completely non-silly. And their later generations did have what's something silly from a later one? The ice cream.
Vanillux.
Yeah, the ice cream Pokemon and
Vanillux is amazing though. I will fight everybody.
Yeah, but I basically agree. I think if you were looking at all of the different generations, the first generation has the most iconic set, and a lot of my all-time favorites are in there. Like Snorlax is probably my favorite Pokemon ever, but but it's it does a lot of cool things, and I think even though its story every Pokemon story is pretty simplistic, but I still think that, and I mentioned this in the Pokemon podcast over a year ago, but I think that their rival in Red Blue is the best Pokemon villain, because you just want to punch him in the face.
Yes.
That is you every step of the way as well. I think there's nothing more souring and bitter than getting to the end of the Pokemon League and thinking, I'm the champion, and then your rival's standing there like, I beat it before you, come and fight me, and
he's always one step ahead of you. He is such a jerk. He can be a challenging boss fight if you're not prepared for him.
Yeah.
Really good team.
He does have a really good balanced team, and in general, I think most of the originals, not challenging, but there are definitely some spikes in there.
Yes, I agree.
In terms of the end, the Elite Four is definitely tough in this game if you're not prepared. I mean,
Victory Road is not an easy dungeon to navigate if you're not ready for it either.
No, definitely not.
And because this, people sometimes think of Pokemon as sort of baby's first RPG, but the original Red Blue had some mofos for dungeons, for real.
Yeah.
The Seaside Cave where Articuno is and Victory Road are both some just block pushing, hole jumping nightmares, and I remember legit getting stuck in dungeons, even though I had played several RPGs by then. In the first time I played Pokemon Red, so we mentioned this at the last podcast as well, but Pokemon is shockingly deep mechanically for an RPG, even though it's popular with children, because you're managing 15 or 16 different types. And all kinds of different stats and huge move pools. It's not the simplest of RPG mechanics.
No, I will say for Gen 1, being the first one, is that mechanically they do have a lot of kinks to sort out.
Yeah.
Story-wise, it is probably the purest, this is the quintessential Pokemon experience. You know, you're just a small town kid who gets to leave his house, and you get your starter Pokemon. You go to fight the badges. It's a template that they've used again and again, but this is, you know, it did it first and arguably did it best. But mechanically speaking, like Pokemon, you just look at like the list of glitches that are in Gen 1.
Right.
Like just,
Oh, beautiful.
not even counting the stuff everyone knows about, like Missing No, but just really weird stuff like Glitch City and like the fact that like you only had 4 stats, the psychics were completely overpowered.
Oh,
there were no ghost attacks to work on psychics because the only one did set damage, and so basically there was nothing strong against psychics and several things weak against psychics. So like Alakazam and Exeggutor are 2 of the best Pokemon in the game just because they have powerful psychic attacks.
Yeah.
And instead of capping out, stat boosts and stat reductions would eventually roll over. So if you you could max yourself too high and accidentally end up with reduced stats and vice versa.
Oh, and just a quick correctional thing. There's 5 stats, not 4. Peter, you probably forgot HP.
I did forget HP. Yeah, I wasn't counting HP. I meant that you had attack, defense, special ones.
But no, you're right. It was a really rudimentary version of the Pokemon formula that would continue to evolve later. I think they added special defense as a stat in Gold, I think.
Yeah, and evasiveness wasn't a thing yet either. I didn't get my start with red and blue or yellow. I was into the cartoon at the time and watched the first movie. And I would play Pokemon with my friends, just the card game. But we were never. I didn't actually play the games until Gen 3. But it was around Generation 2 that I kind of started like really getting into the series. So do we want to move on to talk about Johto a bit?
Oh yeah, this was I haven't played the gold or silver as much as I have red or blue. But it just felt like exactly what I wanted following Red and Blue. It came out, I think, 2 years later. It was new Pokemon, new quest, new everything. But then it also had the original world that had me fall in love with Pokemon in there. Like the second quest in the Johto games is maybe, I think, the defining new feature.
It's the best post game in the whole series still.
Yeah.
No, I think there's one post game that's a little better, but we can talk about that when we cross.
We'll have that discussion. In terms of like, not just like significance to the player, like you're coming back to this and returning to a world you've already visited in an RPG, like that just doesn't happen a lot. Like I'm thinking back to like Dragon Quest II and revisiting the world from the first game.
That's Dragon Quest III.
Dragon Quest 3?
In Dragon Quest 2, you start out in the same world and go to new continents, but in Dragon Quest 3, you start out in a different world and then return to the world of Dragon Quest 1.
Interesting. Okay, sorry.
Sorry. You pressed my Dragon Quest button. I'm sorry, man.
It's all right. It's why we keep you around. We need to Dragon Quest trivia dumps. But for real though, like Generation 2 is just, in terms of just what it did for the series, I think it's the kind of sequel that every game should get, where it adds enough balance fixes and tweaks and new additions to, not just for the sake of doing them, like they add Dark and Steel types were introduced in this version.
And both of them are anti-psychic.
Yeah, both of them are anti-psychic. And they nerf Ghosts a little bit too, thanks to Dark type.
And they gave Ghost attacks besides Nightshade, so that it could actually, so Ghost attacks would actually work on other ghosts and psychics, which is all of the fixes they made were smart and fun, and the return to Kanto bit is awesome. Especially since it's not exactly the same world state either. Like Koga's daughter is the gym leader in Fuchsia, and Blue is the gym leader in Viridian, and then there's the showdown with Red on the top of the mountain.
Oh, that's got to go down as one of the best one-on-ones ever, I think, and definitely the peak of Pokemon's difficulty in terms of series.
In a hard fight.
That is insanely hard. Even in the remake, it's insane. I think the
Yeah.
coolest thing about going back to Kanto is the kind of it is familiar, but it also isn't. Like another thing is that Cinnabar Island is destroyed. Like there's
Right.
nothing there. The gym leader there, Blaine, he is just standing there on a walking stick, and you just have to fight him in the open, and it's quite crazy. And
I
they do
think in the
seem,
remake he relocated to Seafoam Caverns, where
yes, he did.
it used to be. But yeah, the
Yeah,
bombed out ruins of Cinnabar Island. There's
yeah,
just
And
there is
also,
a
it also introduced the Pokemon Day-Night cycle, which became a major
he
feature
did.
of every
yeah
game
the day night
onward.
cycle.
I
Which
love
is
that.
and it's sorry to interrupt you, man, but
Yeah.
the one thing that's annoying about this is that if you have an old copy of Gold or Silver, if the batteries died within the cartridge, then it'll be stuck because there's an internal clock in each of them.
Oh
And
yeah, just for the
but if the battery
day.
dies, then you'll be stuck at one time of day. For the rest of the playthrough, and if you like erase your save file and start over, and you choose what time it is at the beginning, like you do for every new game, it'll be stuck at that time. But
Huh.
but the remake and later games would just use the DS or 3DS's internal clock to determine the time,
Yeah,
which was a very very good fix. But that's one bummer about old cartridges of Gold, Silver, and Crystal.
And
yeah.
we are getting Gold and Silver on the original versions on the 3DS eShop soon. So that'll
Oh,
be a way
cool.
to play the originals and get them.
I would
Yeah.
consider playing those. I have Pokemon Red on my 3DS, and of course I replayed it, and of course I had that the nostalgia shot to the to my neurotransmitters, and that was great.
I'm a little bummed that that Crystal isn't coming though. That was disappointing to me. But
Yeah, a bit of a surprise because most people say that Crystal is probably the best example of both games. I didn't actually play Crystal. I skipped it. I think I got my run and like Peter, I think Silver was where I really started to pay attention and I have some really fond memories. I remember picking up my battery hadn't died at this point, but I remember picking up my cartridge from I must have been 15 or 16, so I put my Silver cartridge in and saw that I still had my old team, and I don't think I can ever replicate the feeling of seeing my big fur alligator still at like level 70, like 10 years later. I'm just like,
Oh,
oh. But I
there,
think Gen 2 probably has my favorite set of starters, controversially. I
oh,
like all
interesting.
three almost equally, I would say. I've got a thing for crocodiles. Like, if you stick a crocodile in a Pokemon game, then it's probably going to be my favorite, and later on Crocodile is like the best thing ever
Wait,
to
he's the
happen.
scary
So,
looking. What is he like? Ground fighting or ground dark?
Ground Dark,
Right.
yeah, in
Oh
Gen
man.
5. I love him. He's so cool. And I really like what they do with.
Salandit from Gen 7.
Oh, Salandite is amazing.
Yeah,
I'm not really familiar with a lot of the Gen 7 Pokemon. So I'll have to Google that. Go ahead.
Salandit is a what is it? Isn't it
So,
poison?
yeah, it's Poison Fire. Poison Fire?
Yeah, I think so.
Or are
And
you
then
thinking of the evolution? Yeah.
and only the female evolves, and the
Yeah.
females have a really rare spawn rate.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
weird.
I spent my life trying to catch her, but
Oh
she's my
wow.
favorite.
The evolved one is something.
Beautiful, isn't it?
It's like they gave a crocodile person like hips.
Beautiful. But yeah, I think it's also got my favorite legendary in the series in the form of Lugia, and I like Ho-Oh as well. I
Yeah.
think they're a nice duology, and
The big
as
birds are a really cool legendary.
yeah, Lugia is. I think this comes from watching the film, the Pokemon 2000,
That's a
that
good
I
movie.
love. That is a good movie, and I really like that. Silver Silver was the real Pokemon game that I really stuck my teeth into. It had some really cool features. I think it's had the second smallest number of Pokemon. I think Gen 7's just trumped that possibly. But
Because it was
someone
only
will
it was only
correct me.
I know it was only 100 in Gold, Silver, but
Oh yeah,
I
and
don't know what all of the specific numbers are.
I think Gen 6 only introduced 60 new Pokemon,
Oh, weird.
but I'm not sure.
6 or 7. I thought 6 had quite a few.
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
I think
Yeah,
7
I'm
had
sure.
about 70, 60 maybe. But yeah, it wasn't a lot at all. But I liked all the little strange things they do. So you've already brought up the day and night cycle, and that, of course, brought Espeon and Umbreon, which are two really cool
I love
evolutions.
I love the evolutions in general.
Espeon.
Espeon's my favorite Pokemon. I have a plush toy looking at me right now.
Oh no, Espeon's my second favorite evolution after Vaporeon. So
Before it.
yeah, but
My favorite evolution is Vaporeon as well, but they are all
hey,
cool, and it's a really fun concept in general.
yeah.
The concept
There's
of
only
Eevees.
one. There's only one that I don't really like. But yeah, and it also, even though it's completely useless, they bought Unknown, which is a really cool idea. Like, it kind of ticked off my collectability brain, but it's just a useless Pokemon, so we'll
Yeah.
just leave it. It's such a waste of potential. But
And
I think I look
didn't
back.
they also introduce the concept of breeding and baby Pokemon and eggs?
Yes,
Yeah,
they
that,
did.
that
So
as
this was
well. So
yeah,
we got Togepi, which again is another character from the anime, and Tyrogue and a few others.
yeah. Tyrogue was cool.
Yeah.
Baby Pokemon are strange. They bought Pichu.
I don't
Was it?
Pichu,
love
yes.
I don't love friendship evolution because that always just struck me as taking too long.
Yeah.
But I like the concept of it. It's just I just hated leveling up for Pokemon for friendship. I ended up it was a pain in the rear doing that in my in later Pokemon games for like Golbat or no I'm sorry the final what's the final bat
Crobat.
Yeah, sorry, yeah,
Crobat.
like Crobat and Lopunny and a bunch of others and Espeon and Umbreon. But the changes that Gold and Silver made are awesome. Maybe the most important of all, adding the special defense stat.
Mhm.
Yep, definitely. Crobat is worth the effort all the time.
Yeah.
Espeon
I
and
love.
Umbreon definitely are.
Gen
Oh
2,
yeah.
Gen 2 is interesting as well because the rival in Gen 2 is actually has a bit of a character arc to him that Blue didn't have in Gen 1.
Yeah, they do try to experiment with characters a little bit more, don't they? Because there's a little bit to Claire as well, who is the last gym leader, if I remember correctly. And
Yeah,
Yeah,
she's
exactly.
like a Lance's senpai or sister or something.
And when
yeah,
you and at the end of it, the rival has gone from being this kind of total jerk who only believes in power to someone who's trying to learn how to work with his Pokemon as a team. And to show this, if you do that final battle with him, where you have to team up with him against Claire and Lance, he has
yeah.
to show that he was able to form a bond with his Pokemon. His Golbat evolved into Crobat.
Oh, it's so good. I remember that.
A little
Oh,
bit of
that's a sneaky bit of communication there, huh?
Yeah, there's a little bit of storytelling there using the mechanics, and that's just something I like. Yeah.
It's
For,
neat.
I mean, this is mostly a fan theory, but the Red and Blue did that as well, where Blue or Gary or whatever you want to call him has Eradicate or a Rattata then Eradicate
Yes.
for
Oh,
most
yeah.
for most of the game, and then when you fight him in the tower where in what is it, Lavender Town,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
which is like the Pokemon
Yeah.
cemetery, he doesn't have the Eradicate anymore. So something I mean, this is again
Yeah.
mostly a fan theory, but something happened to his Raticate that had it die, which is a little dark and weird, but it's there in the game. It's subtext, not text.
Gen, Gen 2, it for me exists in this kind of interesting period of the Pokemon franchise where it's still kind of at the nadir of its popularity. It's a lot of the Gen 2 Pokemon, while they're not maybe quite as memorable as Gen 1's, they're still like the series had enough cultural relevance that they're still just as iconic, like Pokemon like Marl, like Togepi, Lugia.
I would say
Yep.
Tyranitar is a big one for me.
Tyranitar,
Yeah.
a big staple for the series. Though the first
Yeah.
three movies are pretty good.
I just like collecting all of the dragons from like sort of like the big three-stage evolution end game monsters in
Yeah, like the
Pokemon, like
super tier ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, like the Dragonites and the Tyranitars and the Salamence. I always love how there's one or two of those in every generation, and I always try to train them.
Yeah, I think two more things that the gen introduced that I just remembered are is they introduced the apricot berries and the berry system.
Oh right, oh
And they
shoot.
Oh, yeah.
also introduced the different types of balls you could get, which you made with the berries, I believe, or the
Um,
things you got.
Yeah,
They
you
was
you
it
used to
was it?
take them back to one of
the
the cities.
Apricorns.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah,
apricorns.
that's
Yeah,
right.
so
Oh man,
that's where the quick ball, the heart ball, things like that started coming in. There were some new ones brought in Gen 3, but yeah. Um, I have a soft spot for Ampharos because it's a lighthouse.
I love
And
it.
it's
That's
a
one of my
bald
favorite
sheep.
Pokemon.
Yeah, it's my favorite electric type Pokemon. I think.
I wonder if Mareep is a reference to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Because you do have an
Oh,
electric sheep in the game.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. That's one of my favorite evolution lines. I think Gen 2 has got a really solid lineup. I think I agree that they're not as memorable because there's less of them, and there are a few more duds in this gen as well. Like, I love Mantine, but it's not a great Pokemon, I suppose.
Right.
And Gligar is okay, but I really
Same.
like its design. And Sudowoodo, I hate Sudowoodo though. So, but it's a cool idea,
It's a
and
goofy looking thing, Sudowoodo.
yeah. But one thing that everyone will, and I think we might maybe move on after this, I don't know, but one thing that everybody remembers from Gen 2, all their childhood nightmares, come from the pink cow that is Miltank.
Yeah, that's right.
He's
With that
Miltank.
that early the normal gym had that
Oh,
it
Whitney.
was the girl that had a mill tank with rollout
Oh,
that would just wreck you if you weren't ready for her.
Yeah, you want to talk about difficulty spikes in video games aimed at children? Whitney's Miltank like crushed dreams.
Hmm.
yeah, I went and got
You really you really have to have something that resists rock just to absorb the last couple hits of rollout. Otherwise, she will kill you.
I
Yeah,
feel like I went and got Haunter if you could get one at that point, or I think I had a Stantler, which had.
Rollout will still damage it because that's a rock attack, not a normal attack.
Oh
what?
shoot!
I could have sworn rollout was still a normal move.
Oh, I thought I thought it was rock. Am I misremembering?
I think it's more the fact that Miltank is a super sturdy, like it's kind of a tank, and it and that attack does more damage every time it hits.
Yeah, I think she attacks with it 4 or 5 times in a row, and each time it deals double damage of the previous strike.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I'm looking it up.
And but
No,
it
it
was,
is a rocket move. Oops.
yeah, I thought it was. But
Oh well.
and they also but speaking of like moves changing types, they did that a little bit in Gen 2 to just to preserve the flavor a little bit. Like they had wing attack and gust stop being normal and switch to flying, and
Yeah.
they gave more fighting type moves to fighting Pokemon. Like, because like in the old game, I think there was relatively few fighting moves, but and all of them just used like like super punch and karate chop, which were normal moves. So they really just fleshed out the move sets and restored type balance a little bit in the second generation in a way that I maybe appreciate more now as an adult, but is definitely noticeable.
hmm
Mhm.
After Generation 2, there would be a bit of a break in the series where we move away from the connectivity of the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, and we move on to Nintendo's new handheld, the Game Boy Advance. From here, the third generation would be introduced, Ruby and Sapphire, and the region of Hoenn. This generation, I find, is a little contentious. I for me personally, this was Sapphire version was the first game in the series I actually owned, and so I have very fond memories of this title. Um, but I believe for a lot of Pokemon fans, this is kind of when the series starts to the repetition starts to set in, if that makes
Too much
sense.
water, 75.
What was that? Sorry.
Too much water, 75.
Oh yeah, jeez. It had
We
I
were
think
talking about that before the show, yeah. Even Freak is so salty about that.
yeah.
Shows up in
There's
the Gen 7 games.
there is a lot of water in that game. There's like 3 water-related HMs that you need because
Yeah.
they moved the number of HMs from I think 6 to 8 from Gen
Yeah.
2 to Gen 3, and
And water,
it's just
75, yeah.
I don't know. It's just like a lot of the things that Ruby and Sapphire did. It's not one of my more favorite generations. I would probably rank it definitely in the back three. I'm not exactly sure where right now, but it I don't know. Like I didn't love the starters, even though Torchic is adorable, and
Blaziken is best final starter.
yeah,
Act-
Blaziken's a mofo,
Blaziken is super powerful.
Actually,
and he started the run of firefighting
Oh,
firefighting
yeah.
starters for 3 in a row, and he's still the best
I-
one.
I always feel really bad telling people that Torchic is my favorite evolutionary line because everyone's like, yeah, but that started a trend. And I'm like, yeah, but it's the best one. It's not a pig and it's not a monkey. It's a fighting chicken. Like, I get
And also it continued the trend of every fire starter is an animal in the Chinese zodiac.
I did.
Yeah. Well, it didn't really start that trend, but it continued that trend, which is I think a fun trend.
Perhaps the more obvious one out of the salamander, lizard, and
Yeah, no, it's dragon, then rat, then
that's it.
then rooster, then monkey, then boar, then
Ooh,
then I guess dog. Well, whatever. But it's I think it's I think that this selection of Pokemon in Ruby Sapphire and some annoying parts about the world, like the abundance of HMs. Like I'm glad that Tropius was introduced in that generation because that thing can use like 5 different HMs.
Yes,
And
Tropius was my HM whore. So definitely.
He was my HM bitch too. Mm-hmm.
What's better than flying around on a tree? I love Tropius.
Yeah, flying on a dinosaur plant.
Yeah. It's so good. But yeah, I think I agree. I probably put the most time into Gen 3. It was the generation where my other friends really started getting into it, and I used to take my Game Boy Advance to school, and we'd play Pokemon under the desk and stuff like that, and we'd fight, and it was a competition to see whose Blaziken would get to 100 first. This was the first Pokemon game where I got a Pokemon to 100 as well, so I have quite a nice memory of that. But I thought I really liked this generation. It's got my favourite gym leader in it. Not gym leader, champion, which is a bit surprising. I love Steven Stone and his little obsession with shiny rocks. I mean, what else do you want from a man?
He's a cool character, and they do a good job of building up the confrontation to him as well. He's a champion who interacts with you throughout the game.
Yeah, so I just grew really attached to it. I love the water setting, and this is one Pokemon game that runs away with its theme, and we don't really see it again until, strangely enough, and oh no, not even I was going to say Gen 7 with its water base, but actually Gen 6 has got a really solid theme going for it as well,
yeah,
I suppose. But when I think I realised this, when I bought the remake for the 3DS, I remember I have only put 40 hours into it. I've only finished it and done Rayquaza, and that's it. And there's something missing, and I can't quite put my finger on it. I mean, actually, go for it.
Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the Gen 6 remakes of the Gen 3 games. I don't know what it is about them. I think they're good, but they're fun. But there's something, they feel like fan games to me.
Yeah,
that makes sense. It's a weird, like, they take all the improvements and balance stuff and everything that Gen 6 introduced, but they kind of almost make the game too easy.
Yeah. That's something that
should they have loaded it with maybe an end game challenge to make it a bit a more like, even if the main game is easy, you think they should have added something to the end to give the challenge hound something?
Yeah, something like that. But even then, like, I remember, like, I mean, because I went back and played I played some of the older games after that, and I was spending, like, I was like, this is I mean, it's not like punishingly difficult, but like there's more of a challenge than there was in Oris, and I beat Oris the first time in like under 15 hours, and I was like, that's kind of underwhelming.
And speaking of remakes, staying in Gen 3, that did give us the Fire Red Leaf Green remakes, which I think are really good.
It did. Mm-hmm. They're really solid. Yeah, really good.
I think those are the best versions of the Gen 1 games. If you're gonna play them, check that out.
Yeah, because it takes all the glitches and stuff. Gen 3.
Leaf Green is maybe the version I've put I think it's the one I've played the second or third most. I put so much time into Leaf Green. My Pokédex was only missing 6 or 7 Pokemon by the end, I think. And and I really like the design of the female main in Leaf Green. She's got a cool little hat and a cool little bag.
Yeah, that's cute. That was cute, yeah.
This is the first one, the first gen, other than Crystal. Crystal did this as well. Or you can pick between a male and a female protagonist as well, which is Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
well, I mean, Crystal was the first one, but this is
Yeah.
Gen 3 was the first one that had it, right in the base game for everyone. Even though
Yeah.
even though I think the main trainers in Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald are kind of dumb looking.
Yeah,
I
and
I
then
like May's design.
I,
I think
I'm not into it.
I like
I
it.
don't like Brendan's design at all, but
So
I
boring.
play as the female every time in Gen 3.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I never pick the male anyway.
I always pick the ones who I think has the better clothes. So which is
It's
um
But
it's
yeah,
not always the man. It depends.
Gen
yeah.
3 is a polarizing entry, and it did introduce a few things that would go on in the series, like Team Rocket is no longer in the picture. The new villains this time are different depending on which version you play. You have a Team Aqua or Team Magma, and they each have
Team
their own apocalyptic, vaguely nonsensical goals.
I'm gonna drown the world, or I'm gonna drought the world to death. Like,
And
really?
Why
one of
did
Team
them
Sexy
either of them
Pirates.
think that was a good
guys.
idea? Why did either of
Team
them think
Sexy
that was a good idea? Come
Aqua's
on.
Team Sexy Pirates, though, so you know.
And they have their little like come to Jesus moment at the end where they're just like, "What have I done?" And I'm just like, "What did you expect to happen?"
Oh, I
Yeah, for
love
real.
that. I think my favorite addition to butt in a little bit to Gen 3 and something they do not bring back enough. I don't think they've actually brought it back apart from the remake. Is secret bases. Like,
Mm.
Yeah,
why
secret
not
bases
bring
was
them
fun.
back every time? Like, the amount of time I spent decking out my secret base so that characters would go along floor paths, spin around, go on musical notes, go into a trap, and then fight me. It's like, oh, I loved it, and I love that they brought it back for the remake. I'm so glad, and that you could do it over the internet. But
Over
why have they
Street
not
Pass,
brought it
dude.
back? Why? Why is it not in Gen? Why is it not going to be in Gen? Gen 7. Why is it not in Gen 8? Why? Like,
There's not a good answer for that.
there is no good answer for that. It's generation specific. The nearest the series gets to it again is in 4, which we'll go into.
And maybe I didn't mention this to you. We'll talk about 4 in a second. Gen 3 was the generation I basically skipped. I didn't play them as they came out, but when I got back into Pokemon during college, which we'll talk about in the Gen 4 segment, I guess, I got Leaf Green and put a lot of time into that, and used that to mostly to upload Pokemon to my Diamond file, and then I also bought Emerald just to play that generation, and I just ran through Emerald a couple of times again to upload Pokemon to my Diamond file. So
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of nostalgia for Gen 3, even though I have a very, very long, detailed Leaf Green file.
So many water Pokemon.
Yeah,
I don't
jeez.
remember. I don't remember too many of the Pokemon from Gen 3. Actually, I always
I
they're
remember
kind of like,
I had a Walrein that I used for a lot of water ice stuff
oh,
and for water HMs. I liked that guy.
I yeah, I liked Walrein and
I like Walrein
fossils.
because I like Whale Lord because
Yeah,
Pokemon
Wild Lord.
Yes,
in Pokemon
yes,
Colosseum, his character model like is bigger than like a city.
it's beautiful. I love Wailord. Yeah, Wailord, Walrein, Milotic, although perhaps not as powerful as
Well,
Gyarados. I
but
love her.
it's one of the most annoying Pokemon to obtain in the history of the series.
Oh, only in this gen. You have to fish on one specific tile, and there's changes every time. No, thank you.
Yeah, and you have to catch the Feebas that way, and then upgrade it in Pokemon contests to make sure it's as pretty as possible, which is
Yeah.
difficult because Feebas has like like a low beauty stat or something. I don't know. It's so annoying. I never got a Milotic. It's one of the 6 or 7 I'm missing in that Leaf Green file.
Ah, but it did introduce my favorite psychic Pokemon of all time, which is Gardevoir. So
Yes.
I'm a big fan of Gardevoir. Gardevoir and Blaziken are two that I take away with me, and also, yeah, Walrein. There are some solid ones there, but a lot of it is forgettable. So
Yeah,
go on.
again,
You're gonna
it's not one of my favorite generations for Pokemon or for story,
no.
or for trainer design. I'm just not into this generation. It's one of my 2 least favorite. I'm waffling between it and one other for my least favorite generation.
I think
Yeah,
Gen I think Gen 3 has some interesting mythology. Like I like Rayquaza and the legendaries, but yeah, it's
yeah,
I can see why. I know I really enjoy it. I can see why it's
yeah. I have soured on it over the years, but
So
I had fun with it.
So let's talk about a good generation, guys. Gen 4.
You're gonna go with this being the good one, huh?
Really?
I like Gen 4 a lot. It was I think I misspoke earlier. I think Gen 4 was coming out, and a bunch of my friends were planning on getting it. So I bought Leaf Green before buying Diamond, and then played through Leaf Green, and then played through Diamond right when it came out, because I played the hell out of Pokemon Diamond. It has my favorite collection of starters. I think Piplup, Turtwig, and Chimchar are
Oh.
adorable. They are so cute, and have interesting final versions of it, like Water Steel, Grass Ground, and Firefighting are all at least interesting. And I think the story is weak. Like I don't think that Dialga or Palkia or Giratina are that interesting. But it did so many cool things and introduced online trading and online communication, which is like defines the Pokemon series now, I think.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
did move the series forward a lot in that regard with
Yeah.
the added the Wi-Fi capabilities of the Nintendo DS.
It's not my favorite generation, but it's the one that brought me back into Pokemon, and it's I think my longest
yeah.
in terms of hours save file is either my single longest one is Diamond, but I think I have, because I've played Red and Blue so many times, maybe first generation I've had more hours in than fourth generation. But that Diamond file is, I'm very proud of it. It's I spent so much time playing Diamond that I have a lot of affection for Gen 4.
Fair. I think I don't like the starters in this gen.
Oh,
I'm
I
so,
I love all
I,
three of
I'm
them.
I'm sorry,
I'm,
Mike, but I have to back up Alana on this one. The only
I'm,
one I like is Piplup.
I'm
Come on.
salty because penguins are my favorite animals, and Piplup to Empoleon is probably the worst water starter in the whole series. It's just a not very good tank. And I'm like,
Hmm.
but I will give Turtwig and the Torterra line a bit of a nod
That was
because
the one
that might be one of my favorites
I
actually.
I had a cursed Tortwig, which I'm sorry, a
Oh,
cursed Torterra, which was
virus.
basically a an adaptation of like my Snorlax build that I used in Red, Blue, Gold, Silver that I like beat both of those games with. So it was a I had a lot of fun, and also the very first Pokemon I caught in Diamond was a Starly, and it was adamant nature, so it had high attack power, and that
Wonderful.
became my only level 100 Pokemon. It was in my party forever it being the first one I caught.
Staraptor was a good Pokemon. I love Staraptor.
So like I love it's my favorite early game bird, my favorite group of starters. I won't defend the legendaries. I don't think they're that interesting in this generation. But
I For me, just coming in for I did not play Gen 4 upon release. That I was I think entering high school around the time and going through my grumpy teen angsty Pokemon education.
for me that was
We all
Gen
went through
3.
that.
For me that was
Yeah,
Gen 3.
This is
mine was.
so I think and so take what I say within that context, but I really just looking back on it, I like Piplup. I think Piplup's cute. I think there are some good Pokemon that I introduced and some iconic Pokemon like Lucario and Garchomp that would go on to become series
Yeah,
Oh,
six.
I got to get the dragon every time, so of course I had a Garchomp.
Garchomp was awesome.
Mhm.
But then I'm looking at I think one thing I really don't like about Gen 4 is its penchant for introducing weird third evolutions or second evolutions to the Gen 1 Pokemon.
Oh
Um,
right,
Oh,
yeah.
Licky
things like
Licky.
And
things like Licky Licky, Rhyperior, Electivire. I hate them
Tangrowth
so
is another
much.
one.
Yeah, what was
Um
the Yan Mega one called?
I
Oh,
think it
it's
was
Yan Mega.
yeah, from
Yeah,
Yanma.
Yanmega, Tangrowth,
Gliscor.
like they're all bad.
And
Yes, they're
they also
rubbish.
in the other direction, they also introduced some new babies. Like I think Magby and Elekid and Munchlax were all introduced in that
Yeah,
generation
and
as
they're
well.
I
okay. They're
think
okay.
just Munchlax.
I like Leafeon and Glaceon, even
Mm.
if they're probably my lower on the end of my evolution spectrum.
Oh, I like Glaceon. I like
I like
ice
them
types
both.
though.
I like them both. They're just not Espeon and Umbreon. Um,
I've
They did add one late evolution to an earlier Pokemon that's actually one of my favorite in the generation, Mamoswine. the ground ice woolly mammoth. That's an evolution of a Gen 2 Pokemon. I like Mamoswine a lot. What?
I like Mamoswine.
Okay.
But that's maybe the only one of that group of late evolutions that I do like.
Oh, Gligar. I forgot Gligar got an evolution that you
Gliscor.
Yeah.
That's a weird looking
thing. I didn't like that. Yeah. And there was Ambipom as well. Apom's evolution.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Gen 4 collectively has some of my least favorite designs. I said Ampharos was my favorite electric, but then I just remembered Luxray is pretty high up on that list as
Luxray's
well.
Cool.
Luxray is cool.
One thing that I think is very important that Gen 4 did was separating attacks into special or physical.
Very definitely
because
needed.
in the first 3 generations, an attack's type would be all special or all physical. Like, for example, water, ice, fire, grass were always special attacks, and while normal, fighting, rock, ground were always physical attacks. But in Gen 4, they had physical special be separate from type, so which helped a lot of Pokemon that maybe had stats betraying type. Like, I don't know, a Gyarados is a water Pokemon with really high attack and low special, which is not great for water attacks. But in Gen 4, Gyarados got a huge boost in power because now he had physical water attacks to work with. And and like a lot of small changes like that to the Pokemon formula, I think were very positive in Gen 4. I think the most important of all is importing from the GBA games and online play. But
that was a really cool idea.
But the separation of physical and special, I think, is also really important for Gen 4.
I can concede that, yeah.
Yeah. Was Gen 4 the generation where, say, if you had, like, Fire Red and you put it in the bottom, you would get, like, Magby, Growlithe come out in the wild?
Yep.
But if you had Leaf Green, yeah, I really liked that. I thought that was a really neat idea.
There was
and the other...
This is a side note. There's only 2 Pokemon in Gen 3 that you could not catch in Diamond Pearl. And I actually had to seek out friends and borrow their copies, and just to trade, and then trade to my Leaf Green file, and then upload from Leaf Green to Diamond for those. It was really annoying because I had my own copy of Emerald that I bought, but it was Zangoose and Lunatone, which were a weird pair to be impossible to get in Diamond and Pearl.
But no, one of the other things I really like, and something I'd like to refer back from Gen 3, is with the online capabilities of the game, there was, if you were wireless in a room with a friend, you could go underground, and this was one of the places where you could dig up fossils, so this made fossils really accessible for the first time in the series. So
right, and they added I think they added a couple fossils in Gen 4, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, and they were okay. Rampardos and Shieldon.
Well, I mean,
Shieldon's the baby one, but
really, the fossils have never been that impressive in Pokemon games. I think the Gen 6 fossils are cool.
I don't know. I've got
and the original 2 are cool.
Gyarados is okay. From the Gen 3 ones are decent enough.
I like the Gen 3 ones. I like the fossils generally.
I like the dinosaur Gen 6 fossils, but I don't love the other ones.
But yeah, these ones, you could underground as well. You could have another secret base, so there's that as well. That's
Alana's like face just perks up, like secret bases.
Yeah, Pokemon interior design version.
Oh no! What do you think of this
Pokemon
Elite Four?
Home Designer?
Yeah.
What do you think of Cynthia in this Elite Four?
Oh, Cynthia's cool. I mean,
I like Cynthia a lot.
The Elite Four, I remember being quite difficult, especially. Damn, is it Agatha? That's the ghost one, isn't it? But it's the old woman.
The ground lady.
The damn hippo.
Yeah. Mm.
That hippo is the bane of my life, and she also has a
I don't remember her name, but no, I remember her, but I don't remember her name because this is the Elite Four I've probably fought the most since I did so much leveling in Diamond and Pearl.
It's got a really varied set, hasn't it? So it was. Is it fire, electric, ground, and
no?
Dark?
Electric is the last. Whatchamacallit? The last gym. So it's bug. It's bug, ground, fire. Then I think psychic.
Yes, it is psychic because it's the purple haired guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember the original team I used to beat them was Torterra, Staraptor, and Metacham, and I just used those 3 to beat the entire game.
That's good.
Because I
Yeah,
had Medicham with like Ice Punch, Fire Punch, and Electric Punch just for coverage.
Cynthia was hard because she was the
Yeah.
first gym leader for a while that didn't use a specific type. So Stephen used Steel and Lance used Dragon.
No, Steven had Steel, Ground, and Rock.
Okay. I mean,
but yeah, he was like physical, solid, tough guy.
Walls. Yeah. So Cynthia uses no single one type, and one of her Garchomp is a little sod.
Yeah, she has a Garchomp and a Lucario that both will F you up if you're not prepared
and a
for them.
Milotic.
Right,
But the one that always used to bite me in the arse was Spiritomb, who is the first Pokemon, and this has been negated now, but it was the only Pokemon for a while that had no weakness. No weakness. It was Dark Ghost, I believe, so it basically covered everything. This was not rectified until Fairy type was brought in. So we had a whole 2 gens of having Spiritomb. Luckily, it wasn't a great Pokemon. It was kind of but I just got to it and was like, it's like a foggy wall. I can't do it.
It's an initial roadblock for your Elite Four fight for sure.
Yeah,
it was a pretty challenging Elite Four, but my Pokemon strategy in every game, at least since playing them as a teen, is to only have a team of 3 or 4 and beat the game with those, so I don't have to spread the levels out too much.
Oh,
but it served me very well in Gen 4. I remember, because I remember the 3 I used the whole game, which is weird, but
no, I'm real anal. I have to have 6 by that point.
I'll have 3 or 4, and then 2 usually just for HMs.
I mean, it's usually now it's a lot easier to do, but back then you had to give Pokemon an XP share, so just old days. But yeah, I don't have a lot of fondness for Gen 4. I spent a lot of time with it, and there are some really good perks to it. It's actually the first Pokemon game as well where you can add Pokemon to your decks just by looking at them, because you have to complete the Pokedex, and so they have you don't have to complete it by catching them all, but you have to see them all. So the statue of the other legendary will fill in the Pokedex entry for that legendary. So if you had Diamond, it was Palkia. If you had Pearl, it was Dialga. And then you wouldn't get the other one until you actually fought it. But it had some cool ideas, but I think it was the one where I just sort of fell a bit flat on the series, and yeah, I just don't remember it as fondly as some of the other ones, which is a shame.
So, surprisingly, just wanting to move along a little bit. The series would stay on the DS for its next gen, even though the 3DS had been announced at that time. And we got Pokemon Black and White, Generation 5.
Mm-hmm.
And, I actually like Gen 5 a lot, surprisingly. Looking back on it, I never beat it. I got halfway through Black that I borrowed from a friend. But looking back just on that rotation of Pokemon on Unova as a setting, the gimmick of Black and White was that they made a whole new set of 151.
Right.
And some of them are absolute duds. Like
Garbodor.
Like Conkeldurr and Woobat.
Conkeldurr and Woobat are ridiculous.
But but by and large, I think we got some really cool Pokemon out of there. I actually really like the starters for that gen.
I hate Emboar, but the other 2 are fine.
I think Emboar looks cool, but he's not as effective or fun in terms of moveset as the other ones. I like Superior quite a bit, but I agree.
Yeah.
I think the new Pokemon in Gen 5 were really impressive. I mean, okay, first of all, let's get it out there. Sollosi is a Gen 5 Pokemon.
Yes.
Sollosis.
Yeah. And being named Sollosi, I was very interested in that. And the Sollosis I caught ended up turning into a super awesome Reuniclus. And this is another one where I specifically remember the Pokemon I used to beat the game because I liked them so much. It was Superior, Reuniclus, Mienshao, and the mole with the steel mole.
Oh, Drillbur?
Yeah,
the evolution of Drillbur.
Excadrill. Yeah, like those 4, and then later I got a Hydreigon but that was post game.
Cool.
I think there's a bunch of really, really cool Pokemon added in Gen 5. It's a good set of starters, a bunch of new ones I like that are interesting twists on different ones. Like Reuniclus is a slow, fat, psychic Pokemon that is immune to indirect damage. you can do all kinds of weird shenanigans with the like strategy wise and team building wise in Gen 5. And it's separated into two different sort of chapters, the black white and then black 2 white 2. And I think weirdly those two games have different strengths because black white I think has maybe the best villain in the entire game, in the entire
Best
series.
Best story.
It's a really good story, and it takes the angle of like Pokemon hyper environmentalists, but not in a Ruby Sapphire way. Like a man, what's his name? It's M, right?
N.
N, right? Darn.
Natural Harmonia Gropius.
Yes, he believes that Pokemon should not be slaves. It's like Pokemon, like people for the ethical treatment of Pokemon. Yeah.
Yeah, really.
But but I mean, of course, I mean, it does kind of gets it gets a little sidetracked, and eventually Team Plasma has ulterior motives. But N remains an interesting character, and
I think he's the best Pokemon villain. Full stop. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's definitely my second favorite yet.
The only one that I think compares is the rival from the very first game.
They have Unova in general is it's based on New York. That's that's a cool little setting.
Mm-hmm.
You have, I think, the legendaries that gen, Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem are really cool. Kyurem calls Pokemon 911. This is canon. Look it up.
And also isn't that the generation that introduced the Three Musketeers?
Yeah.
It's
4.
Well, no, it's 4 because I mean, just like the Three Musketeers, there's 3 of them, and then there's an upstart one that joins the team. So like that little water the water unicorn dude is like the D'Artagnan of Gen 5.
Yeah, Keldea.
Super cool. Yeah,
Keldea, that's him.
Awesome.
I love the Pokemon designs in that one, and I mean, Black White has a great story, and Black 2 and White 2 doesn't have a really good story, but it has maybe my favorite gyms and my favorite Elite Four of any Pokemon generation, because they upgrade and improve, and each gym layout in Black 2 and White 2 for some really interesting gym ideas. Like one is a fashion runway that with people posing down, and one that has the water gym is just really an interesting kind of maze setup.
Yeah, so
and
they changed 2 of the gyms between the generations, don't they? So
they do.
Yeah, they do, and changed leaders, a couple of them as well, and changed champion as well. So
I think the Elite Four is super cool in Black 2 and White 2. With you can choose the order, and they're all weaknesses and strengths against each other, except for the champion who has a bunch of dragons.
Yeah, only in Black 2 and White 2, because they're more balanced in the original.
Oh right, yeah, it's the old crazy bug dude in the original, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, he has mostly bugs, but they're fairly balanced. Like Gen 5 is the generation that everyone's like, "Oh, bugs terrible," and it's like middle fingers up to like everyone who hates bug Pokemon.
Yeah.
Because Volcanion is amazing, as is Scolipede. Oh my god, Scolipede is one of my favourite Pokemon ever. Like you were saying, Gen 5 I think is the only gen where I remember my specific team that I had for the Elite Four, and they're so special. So I think I had Superior, I had Vanillux, obviously, because it's an ice cream. And I love Vanillux, and I love it when people get mad.
I think it's just so silly. Mad. It's so silly that I'm not even mad. I just think it's hilarious.
It's great. So I had Vanillux. I had Hydreigon, because that he's so dumb. He looks so dumb, but he's so cute. Cool. But Axew is the cutest baby dragon ever. Yeah, like a little wobbly hand.
And he turns into a Haxorus, who's a real mofo.
He's a mofo indeed.
I did have a Haxorus. But go ahead and tell. What's the rest of your team?
So I also had. I don't think I had the bird. This is the only generation where I didn't have the bird. Oh, I had Chandelure. Chandelure goes down as one of the best ghost Pokemon.
A Chandelier fire ghost.
Yeah.
And they also added Chandelure in Pokken, which was an interesting choice. Crazy choice. Maybe the most unexpected Pokken fighter is Chandelure.
Yeah, Chandelure is great. I also had a Crocodile, as I mentioned earlier, because I love crocodiles. And I believe my last Pokemon was... What were we just talking about before? Scolipede. Yeah. So I had a fairly balanced team that kind of wiped... the Elite Four. It was probably the easiest Elite Four for a while. It's not the easiest
Yeah.
overall. That goes to the next generation, I would say.
I remember thinking the champion was pretty strong, but the Elite Four, I mean, especially since you could choose which order to fight them, they were a little bit easy for an Elite Four. Because they, and also instead of ramping up in levels and difficulty, they were all around the same level.
Like high 50s.
Yeah, which made them feel easy. I mean, I mentioned most of my team earlier, but my team for, I think for Black 1, White 1, it was Superior, Excadrill, Mian Shao, Reuniclus, and Haxorus. And then for Black 2, White 2, I just sent my whole team over, and I just used the starter until I could use my original team without them disobeying. And then I added the Hydreigon later for the post game in Black 2, White 2, which we have to bring up because the post game in Black 2, White 2 is my favorite post game in Pokemon history.
It's pretty much.
Because I mean you have the it does a lot of stuff that a lot of the older games did with like a Battle Frontier or Battle Island with lots of special challenges, but they also have the Pokemon World Tournament that lets you fight every gym leader and every and every champion from every previous Pokemon game in a series of single elimination tournaments, and I love the PWT. I played those so much.
I do like that. That is really good. I think I didn't do much of it though because, like you said, Black 1 and White 1 have really good stories. By the time I got to end of Black 2 and White 2, I really I don't know, I got bored. I didn't like Black 2 and White 2 as much as everybody else seems to. And
well, I mean, I alluded to this earlier, but I think that Black 1, White 1 has one of the best Pokemon stories, and Black 2, White 2 has some of the best Pokemon gyms and Pokemon end game and post game. So they have different strengths and weaknesses, but I think because it's one of my favorite generations because the new Pokemon are so good, and because of the strengths of the different games in the 5th generation. I did not put as many hours into Gen 5 as I did Gen 3 or 4. Speaking about my Leaf Green file in Gen 3, but I think I like it more than both of those generations.
I just like the way that Gen 1 pulls the rug from under your feet because, you're so used to doing the Pokemon formula, so you get to the Elite Four. Oh no, I have to pick what order I do them in. And the first time you do it, you don't fight the champion. You don't fight the champion the first time you beat Black 1 and White 1.
Yeah.
You have to fight N and Gestis, which is mind-blowing for even, I think, Black 2, White 2, I was 16 when Black and White came out, so I was kind of like, wow, that's really cool. But I agree. I think Pokemon Generation 5 gets a bad rep and doesn't deserve to because it's
I'm not sure
probably
why
one
it
of my
has a bad
favorite
rep.
gens.
I'm not sure why it has a bad rep. I mean, maybe because
I think it's a combination of the sheer amount of new Pokemon they introduced, and because it kind of became a meme to let's hate on Vanillice, let's hate on Garbodor.
There's a Kung Fu Weasel in it. I love the Kung Fu Weasel.
And I think a lot of the good designs in Black and White got drowned out in the sea of the ones people were making fun of. But but the people who are still sticking with it and playing the games, even on older hardware, these were some of the best Pokemon games to come out.
Yeah, I would agree.
Well, as a footnote, I wanted to say I forgot to mention that in the Gen 3 discussion that they introduced double battles.
Right.
Oh shoot, we had triple battles in 5.
Because Gen 5 introduced triple battles and rotation battles. So
yeah, those are crazy.
I love them.
I think they're quite a lot of fun, and they introduced some interesting new wrinkles to the Pokemon mechanics. We don't need to spend too much time talking about them. I just wanted to bring that up.
Another reason why the post game in Black 2, White 2 is so good because all of these crazy changes you can explore.
Yeah.
But moving on, I came back to the Pokemon series full stop with Gen 6. It was X and Y that did it for me. And I think for a lot of people, because the first fully 3D mainline entries on the 3DS system, I think for a lot of people this was the Pokemon game they'd been waiting for. It's not. I know, and I think Gen 6 is not. It's not my favorite gen by a long shot. I think it has a lot of Pokemon. There's a lot of the new. It has a smaller roster of new Pokemon, less than half of what Gen 5 introduced. But I think you have some really strong entrants. We got stuff like Tyrantrum, Greninja.
Cool.
I like both of the fossil dinosaurs, Tyrantrum and the was it Aurorus?
Aurorus.
Aurorus, yeah. But I think both of those are cool fossils, and the starters are very cool and cute in this generation.
Yeah,
Yes.
we got some great we got some long overdue balance tweaks with the addition of fairy type. Uh,
Yeah.
we got mega evolutions, which is just a whole nother wrinkle to get into, where you get Pokemon that
Yeah.
basically go Super Saiyan and get these cool transformations, and they're super unbalanced, and I think they're a lot of fun.
A
Um,
waste of time.
I,
I mean,
I
I,
like the idea of Mega Evolution sort of as super moves, but it's such a
yeah,
weird balance thing. And but
yeah,
some of them are cool. Like I mean, Kangaskhan and Lopunny take Pokemon that I think are kind of dumb and make them awesome.
well,
yeah.
and it's something they sort of addressed in Gen 7 with Z moves, how they made it a one-use super move.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Although they didn't get rid of Megas entirely, they are in the post game.
yeah. I, Mega Revolutions didn't really appeal to me. I don't use them ever. I don't really like any of the designs at all.
Well, I
I
love Mega Charizard X, man.
Mega Charizard X is cool, but some of them, and this is maybe where I'm going to come across as like, oh, old Pokemon fan. They ruin a few of my favorites. So like, I hate Mega Gengar. I hate Mega Gyarados. I
Mega
just,
Gyarados looks strange.
yeah,
Like his head is too big for the rest of his body.
yeah,
Yeah, I can see
absolutely,
that. Mega
yeah.
Mega Swampert just gets super buff.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the idea, and I think, like you said, Gen 7 addresses that issue with one use super moves. I didn't really use those either. I
I didn't
didn't
even know.
feel.
I'm, I'm sorry. I'm looking at a list of Gen 7 Pokemon. I didn't even know Altaria had a Mega Evolution until now. And I'm
Yeah,
looking at the picture, and it doesn't look any different from base Altaria.
no,
I,
it's just
I am
fluffier.
struck. It's just fluffier.
Yeah,
Literally
but
it.
no, Gen 6. Gen 6 is another gen I put a hell of a lot of time into. It was the first generation that negated the need to equip the XP share, so you just turned it on. So that was a really nice thing, so I could just kind of go in all guns blazing with a
Hmm.
full party of 6 consistently. I had
Yeah.
some really cool Pokemon in that generation as well. So I had, I think my favorites were, I liked, who's the Gudra, the Drippy Dragon. Gudra is super cute.
I liked Goodra too. That was one of the ones I used a lot. I really like Sylveon, the new Eevee evolution.
Yeah, Sylveon's
Uh, I don't like
fan.
it.
Aw.
Sylveon is definitely.
Talonflame is probably my favorite early bird, other than Staraptor.
Yeah, Talonflame is really, really cool. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the um Sylveon. She's definitely my least favorite. I'm not a huge fan of fairy type, but I remember it took me ages to figure out fairy type as a strength to dragon because I was like,
Yeah.
why? And then somebody was like, in fairy stories, dragons always get killed, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. But it was an addition to God of War, which was really cool. But as far as Pokemon go, I don't really like many of them in
I,
that type.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't a lot of new Pokemon, and there's maybe 6 or 7 that I really like, and I think the starters are good in the 6th generation. But
I'm gonna hit you on this one for a sec.
mhm.
I like the starter designs. I like all the starter designs. Chespin is like my favorite Pokemon, one of my favorite starter Pokemon ever, and
Mm.
its final evolution is Terabad.
Yeah, I was not impressed
Oh,
with Chess. I like the idea of grass fighting, especially since I think Breloom is a really great Pokemon, but
yeah,
Chestnut is not as cool as the Psychic Fox or Greninja. I forget the Psychic
Just
Fox's name.
fantastic.
And
Yeah.
Delphox is amazing.
That's it, Delphox.
Delphox was my go-to choice because Psychic is one of my favorite types, and I love
Fighting
Delphox
is one of my favorite
as well.
Fighting is one of my favorite types. Like fighting and ground are probably my two favorite Pokemon types. But they're like Chestnut. I was not impressed by. But I have to say I love Aegislash because like a Ghost Sword is a great concept.
Aegislash is special.
And I love Hawlucha being a wrestling fan and having like a wrestling luchador hawk is just excellent.
Flying, fighting. He is adorable as well.
So
He's like a little angry tiny man. I'm just like, oh, I want that.
Hawlucha and Talonflame. This is a good year for flying Pokemon because I used Hawlucha and Talonflame through to the end.
Yeah, I had Aegislash. I can't remember most of my other team. I don't think I mentioned this actually. I play Pokemon very specifically, so I won't pick any Pokemon outside of that generation to be in my team. So if I'm playing Gen 6, I will stick to exclusively new Gen 6 Pokemon.
I usually do that too because I want to learn about the new Pokemon before I play new ones.
Yeah, definitely.
At least the first run.
Aegislash was cool, and I had Aurorus as well, and my starter of choice was Delphox because Shaman Fox, you know. But I can't remember the rest of my team. I'm struggling.
I had a Chespin, a Talonflame, a Hawlucha.
I had a Goodra,
a Sylveon, and I think, but the Sylveon came very late. And I think that's about it. Oh, I did have an Aegislash, but he fell behind in levels to Talonflame and Hawlucha, who were my co-MVPs that year.
I mean, Gen 6 did include the hottest Pokemon, Professor.
Really?
You know? Sycamore! Gen 6, sorry. Sycamore is amazing.
I'm gonna go and look up ranking hotness of Pokemon professors.
Okay.
No. Oh, no. Polygon has an article from last year. And
the thing you should be looking up, Mike, is the amount of erotic fan art.
I'm not doing that, but they do have Sycamore ranked number 1 overall. Yeah, he's a handsome man. It's true.
Absolutely, the best, and he's like your dad. He just follows you around everywhere and makes dad jokes and tries to speak French. Like,
so I'm a little surprised Kikwi hasn't topped him for a single.
I would have said Kukui is the hottest Pokemon professor, but I mean, what do I know?
Now you have thrown a spanner in the works because I completely forgot. I think Gen 6 had a really solid set of Pokemon, though. I don't really remember disliking anything in particular. Maybe that Digger Bunny. Does anyone remember Diggersby?
Yeah, Diggersby was kind of bad.
I honestly don't like XY very much as a Pokemon generation. I played it very late. I played it last year. But it was... I just think that the arc of it was a little too easy and too boring. I didn't like the selection of gyms or Elite Four, and it's like it didn't have enough enough for me that was new and exciting, other than 3D and a few of the and Mega Evolutions, I guess. While I thought that the story and end game and gym leaders and everything in Black White was like excellent. XY felt like it was a step down in Pokemon traditionalism, but a giant step forward in in mechanics and visuals and other things. So it's not one of my favorite generations.
Yeah, it ranks. Yeah, well, we'll go into rankings eventually, I think. But I would say it's probably around the middle for me. I had a really great time with it at the time, and looking over some of the Pokemon, I think it might have it's got a really nice, solid Pokemon set. But story-wise, I remember coming off of it, having played Black about a year ago, and it was just a couple of years before that, and I was just like, oh, I'm really disappointed. Like, there is a 9,000-year-old man chasing his flower. So, you know, that is the story. But, yeah, I mean, Gen 6 did some really good things for the Pokemon series, like really, really good.
I think that story went surprisingly dark when it's talking about like a Pokemon war and like the guy gets a tiny little box back from the war, and I'm just like, oh no.
Oh really? But I like it, but I think again, like Gen 3, it's kind of not sat as well with me. Over time. It's probably more middle than it is Gen 3, but yeah.
Well, last but not least, or maybe least, we haven't ranked them yet, is the most recent generation of Pokemon, Sun and Moon, Generation 7.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think we need to spend as much time on this one since they're relatively recent and probably fresh in people's memories.
I haven't beaten any of them, but
Ah.
I borrowed a friend's copy that he was planning on he had both, and his main file was on Sun, so he lent me Moon, which he was planning on resetting anyway. He's like, hey, yeah, just play through this and then give it back to me, and I ended up not playing through all of it, but I was so impressed with how different it feels.
Yeah.
I think my overall impressions of Sun and Moon just total. I mean, I think it's a rock solid game. I think it makes a ton of just quality of life fixes that just improve the series so much that it's hard to go back to even X and Y after playing it mechanically.
Yeah.
Uh, I like the new Pokemon by and large. I like the starters. I like the fact that the legendaries this time actually have an evolutionary line. Get in the bag, Nebby.
Get him
I
back.
do like the Alolan versions of classic Pokemon.
I
That
like that too. Yeah.
it's
Excellent. Yeah.
I like that more than the Mega Evolution system in XY, I think.
It carries on my tradition. This is my joke tradition with my friends is that I'm going to have a team of inanimate object Pokemon. So I've got the keys from Gen 6, I've got the ice cream from Gen, or even a beach one. So I've got the ice cream from Gen 5, and I have the almighty Sandygast. I have Sandygast.
Oh,
I
God, the
remember seeing.
terrifying sandcastle ghost.
I love it. I literally fell over myself with Palossand. I was like, Ghosty Sandcastle? Really? I just love really dumb, silly Pokemon, but it's
Oh,
creepy. So you know how like creepy pastas and stuff exist, but
Mhm.
this like the description for Palossand is creepy. It basically eats children. It swallows children into the sand.
they actually turned a ghost Pokemon into a horror story, and it's great.
They did. But Gen 7, I blasted my way through it. I was on vacation at the time, so I took it with me. It's got a really solid set of Pokemon again. And going back to your wrestling theme, I mean, the little cat, Litten,
Oh
Incineroar.
yeah.
Yeah, you've got your all
Incineroar's
of,
great.
I
yeah,
think the starters are really cool in Sun Moon. I of course played with Rowlet because I always pick the grass starter always,
yeah.
which maybe you noticed that in this over the course of this show, maybe you didn't. But I think all three of them look really cool in Sun Moon, and I sort of loved the how the internet reaction to oh shoot, the seal, what's it called,
Oh, I can't remember now. Poplio.
yeah, Poplio
Oh,
was so polarizing. People either thought it
beautiful.
was the dumbest one ever, or people adored it, and there
It's
was
so cute.
and
It is.
we even threw shade at between RPGFan staff about the different starters in Sun Moon
Yeah.
when that was you know active on Twitter last year, and it was a lot of fun. But even though I've always been Team Rowlet, but yeah, like
Me
Grass
too.
Ghost Owl and crazy cool beautiful fairy seal and and wrestling heel dark fire tiger.
Yeah.
That's great. That is cool concept wise and visually, and the initial three starters are cute as hell. I haven't played enough of Sun Moon to get a feel for what all the designs look like, but the ones that I know, I am very impressed by. I like a lot of what Sun Moon has going for it.
Yeah, it feels like it's an entirely new take on Pokemon, like no gyms, islands, everything. I don't want to spend too long on it, but yeah, I really really like Gen 7. I've come off of it a little bit. I've come off of the high and I don't know. It's another gen that I didn't put. I used to put like 100 hours into every Pokemon game, and the end of Gen 6 to Gen 7, I've just sat around 50 and not gone back because post games aren't too particular. Like
Fair.
I don't. Yeah, I just.
I would, I mean, from what I've played, I would rank it near the middle of my overall ranking. But if I really liked the end game and the Elite Four segments, I would probably it might crack into the top 3 or 4 if that stuff is awesome. But I don't know since I've only played like the first half of Sun Moon.
Yeah.
Well, so now that we've gone over each of the Pokemon generations, I guess now it's time for us to just go through and talk about our favorite and our least favorite. You've probably gotten some hints of these if you've been listening to our discussion, but I guess, Alana, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I suppose. I think I've probably suggested this through the podcast. I'll start with my least favorite. Gen 4 is definitely my least favorite. It just, while it's added some cool things and done some really nice mechanic things, it's got the least impressive Pokemon roster to me. It's got the least impressive story, least impressive setting. It's
Cynthia's the
just
least impressive master.
no, so definitely not. So she is definitely one of the best champions, but overall, Gen 4 is very forgettable
Oh,
for me. I
okay.
don't really take anything away from it at all. Apart from Cynthia, Luxray, there's a Penguin starter that's But yeah, I think a lot of it tends to be based on Pokemon preference and amount of time that I've spent with it. And Gen 4 is one of the ones I spent maybe 70, 80 hours on. The starter roster is my least favorite. The overall generation of Pokemon is my least favorite. It's just a bit forgettable. But in contrast, and probably what won't surprise anybody is Gen 2 is my favorite. Gen 2 is the first one I really dug my teeth into. Is the first one that I remember. I remember the entire journey. I remember the excitement, and especially with Hog. So Gen 4, ironically, Gen 4 might be my least favorite in terms of the main games, but if you factor in Heart Gold and Soul Silver into that mix, then oh boy, does that skyrocket that generation up. I'm only basing this on the main games because Heart Gold and Soul Silver take everything that's good about Gen 2 and stick everything that's good about every other generation and make it so much better. Gold and
Oh,
Silver
absolutely.
have always been my favorites, probably always will. Probably my favorite. It's my favorite set of starters. It's got some really solid Pokemon designs. The post game is absolutely amazing. It's really great. It's not the easiest Pokemon game, but it's it's nostalgia, a lot of it, very much so.
You're gonna laugh, but my picks are the same as yours.
It's a
Um,
generational thing. It's like
I guess so. Yeah, Gen 2 is my favorite generation as well. For a lot of the reasons you just described. I think, as I said during the discussion, I think it's one of the best balances of a Pokemon sequel, an RPG sequel, where there's just the right number of balance tweaks and additions. I think the series was still riding that wave of where Gen 2, I think, is not is almost as iconic as the first generation in terms of its place in the Pokemon series. And and yeah, the games, Gold, Silver, Crystal are great. Heart Gold and Soul Silver are the best remakes. The amount of content you have just being able to visit Kanto again, it's so good. And I don't think Gen 4 is bad by any stretch of the imagination. I just am the least impressed with it. It's just there's just too many of weird secondary and third evolutions added that I find to be really uninspired.
Hmm. I have a lot of positive nostalgia for Gen 4. I ranked it near the middle in my personal rankings that we'll tab up later, but I can't disagree with most of those criticisms.
Yeah, it's just a personal thing. Like it's the least of a good thing. Um, but
did we have did we have the same phase at the same age? Because I think there's only a year between the two of us.
Yeah,
So
you're about the same age, and I mean
we might have, yeah.
your rankings aren't exactly the same, but they're more similar than they are to mine.
So what about you, Mike? What have you got?
Well, my least favorite. Well, no, I'll go with favorite first. My favorite is maybe surprisingly Gen 5.
woo,
I really
love it.
like. Gen 2 is my second favorite, so I'm not that far away from you guys. But I really like all of the strengths and weaknesses of Black 1, White 1 versus Black 2, White 2. I think it has some of the best gym leaders and champion and the main story of Black 1 and White 1 I think is the best story arc of any one Pokemon game. And I just love the new Pokemon in that generation. There's so many that became my favorites, mostly
That's
like
great.
the six starters, the six that were on my team that I mentioned earlier, and the starters are good too. There's so much I like about Black One White One. I was a little bit surprised when I was trying to mentally tab this up that I ultimately decided to say 5 instead of 2 because they're both great. But I really, really like Gen 5 of Pokemon. It makes this conversation makes me want to go back to my Black 2, White 2 file.
Yeah.
And my least favorite is it was a little bit of a tough call, but I'm gonna say Gen 3, just because I think it like the story is the most nonsense to me, and the new Pokemon I were not among my favorites in Gen 3. But and part of it's nostalgia because that was a generation I passed by a little. I didn't play until much later. But I mean, since I played Leaf Green, Emerald, and Diamond in the same window, and just Emerald seemed like it was lacking so much compared to the other two, it just seemed very unimpressive to me, and I don't love Gen 3 very much.
That's fair.
That's totally fair.
Now, during the break that we had a short time ago, we had individual rankings that I compiled into a final ranking. So do you want me to recite that for the fans now?
Yeah, let's do it. Here presents the official RPGFan designated Pokemon generation list.
Yes, and
Ooh.
wait, let me check something. Okay, yeah, it's not exactly the same as any of our lists, but I'm sure that the listeners have figured out at least some of these by now. Okay, so in 7th place we have Gen 4, Diamond and Pearl. Sorry, guys, I tried. In
the arms of Palkia, fly away.
Oh boy.
Sorry, you had to.
Just like a Yanmega. Okay, anyway, so in 6th place we have Generation 3, Ruby Sapphire. I had it ranked last, and both of you had it ranked near the middle. And for Diamond Pearl, you both had that ranked last, and I had it near the middle.
Oh.
In 5th place we have Gen 6, X and Y.
Oh, what?
The only one that never had a third version, right? Am I missing?
Yes.
No, yeah, you're right. They did not make it.
I thought that was a little strange. I thought we were going to get an X1, an X2, Y2, or a Z, but never happened.
They made a Z for the anime, but not
okay.
Not for the game.
And in 4th place, we have Sun Moon Gen 7, which all of us had in the middle-ish. And also, truthfully, in XY, all of us also had those in the middle, but Sun Moon had slightly better rankings from us.
Interesting.
In 3rd place, we have Gen 1, the original. Alana very defiantly ranked it second to last. But Peter and I like Gen 1 a little better than she does, I guess. In 2nd place, we have Gen 5, which is my favorite and the second favorite of both Peter and Alana.
I'm so glad.
The surprise high finisher here. I thought I was going to be all alone in ranking Black White highly, but I was wrong.
I thought I was going to be alone in ranking Gen 5 highly. I'm so glad.
It finished second overall.
I'm so glad it's second, because I think that's fair. I think... Oh, I'm happy. I can leave this podcast happy.
And the winner, which you probably figured out already because 2 of us picked it as their number 1, is Generation 2. I ranked it second. Peter and Alana ranked it first. It's super good. There's so much content. The designs are so good. We all love Generation 2, Gold, Silver, and Crystal.
We do.
Heart and soul.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry if your favorite got bumped down lower, and feel free to yell at us on the boards or via email, because we love to hear you, even when you're mad at us.
I'm not sad for putting Gen 2 second to last.
Gen 1, you mean?
Gen 1, sorry.
Yeah.
Damn it, my combative stance failed.
Gen 1ers, you know where to find us. We accept your hate with open arms.
I was really not sure whether to put XY or Ruby Sapphire 3 or 6 at last, and I ended up doing 3 last. But that was the toughest call for me.
For real though, like I said when I was talking about my bottom pick, is Pokemon. When we were talking about Pokemon, it's really the least of a good thing. I think each generation of Pokemon has come with their own strengths, and at the end of the day, they're all great, fun RPGs that appeal to a wide variety of people, and that's something to be happy about.
Yeah, I mean, Pokemon's great. Even though I don't I don't play H1 when it comes out. Whenever I want to play Pokemon, I know there'll be one for me there, and and I always have a good time. Even though I ranked XY pretty low, I played it last year and really liked it.
Don't forget the Switch one that's coming out soon.
Right, yeah.
Next year. That's so exciting.
As soon as we get Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which I'm cautiously more optimistic for than the internet seems to be.
And me.
I'd prefer an Ultraman game over an Ultra Moon game.
You would.
Of course I would.
But I think that will about do it for this episode of Retro Encounter. As always, feel free to write us retro@rpgfan.com. We are always pleased to hear from you guys. You can find me at I Have Fury on Twitter. I'm at I Have Fury on the boards. Where can they find you guys?
So I am at Alana Hagues on Twitter. I'm also Diving Falcons on the boards. So please fight me with your Voltorbs, and I'll fight you with my Vanillux.
That's a matchup I'd want to see.
Yeah, that's neutral Pokemon type damage, so there's no obvious winner at the beginning.
But I think Vanillux can learn Earthquake, so bye.
Oh, but they might try to just explode in your face with an explosion of hot takes.
Yeah, explosion of hot take. My hot take is that Gen 5 is good. That's our hot take.
That is the hottest
we share that hot take, and I'm a little surprised, pleasantly, by that. And and I guess listeners, if you want to find me, I'm Monsoon on the boards and at The Real Monsoon on Twitter. Come at me with your Pokemon hot takes. Excadrill's the best. Mian Xiao's also the best. Gen 5's the best.
And stay tuned, listeners. We have a whole bevy of Retro Encounter episodes coming up for you, including a series on Grim Fandango. You can look forward to that.
Woo!
Yeah, I'm gonna bash out my Spanish Mexican.
You bash out your Spanish Mexican and send all that love, all that vicarious love to Tim Schafer, who is a very gracious man when we randomly pass him by on escalators.
That's true. He was very nice to us when we said hi to him at E3 passing by on escalators.
He looked very confused, but he was very gracious.
Oh, these people.
He was a good sport.
He's a nice guy.
Trainers, this battle has come to an end. Stay tuned to future Retro Encounter episodes. We're signing off now.
I fainted and Alana took half my money.
Bye. I have no idea what else to add there.